Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, this is the story I was planning on leading with yesterday, except, of course, we had that tragic shooting, mass transgender shooting that took place in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. But there was a big developments overseas over the weekend. At the Munich Security Conference, and this is not Davos. This is not where the rich and famous gather to be seen and to be heard, and they party into the middle of the night with champagne and caviar. The Munich Security Conference is a serious conference. It's one of the few conferences around the world where they talk about serious issues, serious ideas, world leaders, diplomats, thought leaders, as they're called, get together and they discuss foreign policy, international affairs. Long story short, it is a serious conference for serious people. J.D. Vance spoke to the Munich Security Conference last year and eviscerated, rightly, the Europeans. This time, it was Marco Rubio's turn. And I'm going to play the cuts a little bit later in the show. But trust me when I tell you this. Rubio delivered. It was an 18-minute speech. One of the most brilliant, optimistic, impressive speeches really in the last couple of years. It was Reagan-esque. It was also full of powerful MAGA and America First themes. It was direct. It was substantive. Yet it was also positive and uplifting at the same time. There is no question. By the way, ultimately, you may be asking me, Jeff, what was it about? It was a rousing defense, not just of America, but of Western civilization and Western culture. And it was a rallying cry, especially to the Europeans, to save the West while there's still time. And by the way, he got a standing ovation at the end, which nobody thought would ever happen in that room. So the point is, Rubio delivered a speech that, whatever you think about him, elevated him to the level of a serious statesman. In fact, now people after this speech are openly saying, if JD wins the presidential nomination in 3 years, Rubio will definitely be his vice presidential pick. The two men are very close. They're friends. They're good friends. Ideologically, they're almost on the same wavelength. Not quite, but pretty much on the same wavelength. And Rubio, over the weekend, I mean, he shone like a star. In fact, many are now saying he may have shown so much, he will give JD a real run for his money should Rubio decide to seek the nomination himself. So, on the one hand, you have Marco Rubio, who, at a bare minimum, people are talking about the next vice president under a J.D. Vance presidency, who lit up the room, literally lit up the room. And then, as I said, a tale of two candidates, a tale of two parties, and a glimpse into the future. As I speak to you now, California Governor Gavin Newsom, who, by the way, was at the security conference as well, and I'll get to that later. Newsom is now seen by many as the presumptive frontrunner for the Democratic nomination in 2028. He's acting like it. Pelosi is supporting him behind the scenes. The establishment is rallying behind him. The media and the European elites are trying to treat Newsom as the next heir apparent, as the man who will carry the Democratic mantle into 2028. However, all eyes were on Sandy Cortez. She used to go by Sandy. AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Because everyone is saying she will be the Democrats' vice presidential nominee. It will be a Gavin Newsom, Sandy Cortez AOC ticket. That's what people were saying before the weekend. And so she went to Munich. And she went to Munich to try to solidify her credentials as the Democrats' VP pick, either under Kamala Harris, who wants to run again, or under Gavin Newsom. And oh boy, it was a flaming disaster. She basically committed political suicide right there on the stage. Now, I'm not saying domestically she's finished. She's not. The Moonbats love her. The socialists love her. The hard left loves her. The Bills in Sudbury, the Chris's in Gloucester would crawl on broken glass to vote for her. But as a serious presidential contender, or as someone who could be a heartbeat away from the presidency, she's even worse than Tim Walz. It's hard to believe, but I'm telling the woman is so vacuous. Forgive me, there's no other way to put it. So stupid. She's as dumb as a box of rocks. And in Munich, the Democrats now just couldn't hide it. Now, I want you to think about this. She goes to a security conference in Munich, where she will be one of the premier top tier speakers. This is her auditioning to be potentially the next vice presidential candidate for the Democrats in 3 years. Of course, you're going to be asked about China. Of course, you're going to be asked about Taiwan. How could you not be prepared for such an obvious question? So, one of the journalists in the room asks her an obvious question. Should China decide to make a move on that island democracy? Should China seek to invade and annex Taiwan? What should and what will the United States do? I want you to listen to this. This may be the dumbest answer in the history of U.S. diplomacy. Roll cut 3A, a mic.
Would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is this is, of course, a very long-standing policy.
That's the answer. You're probably saying, no, Jeff, she must have said something else. That's the answer. That was her answer. Okay? It was a word salad that Kamala Harris would be envious of. Like, whoa, how did you butcher this? Somebody help me here. Where is Taiwan? We love China. Can't speak bad of China. It's help. It's our policy. It's our policy. Even the New York Times, even the New York Slimes said her performance was pathetic, amateurish, embarrassing. It got even worse. She tried to make a point about how the United States should not be deposing leaders like Maduro. And even then, you shake your head in utter disbelief. How this woman is the poster child, the face of the Democratic Party, and now potentially their future, and maybe even their vice presidential candidate. Listen to this. Ay, ay, ay. Roll cut 15, a mic.
It is not a remark on who Maduro was as a leader. He canceled elections. He was an anti-democratic leader. That doesn't mean that we can kidnap a head of state and engage in acts of war just because the nation is below the equator.
Even my Ava knows this. She's 13 years old. Ashton knew this years ago because they studied geography a little bit at school. Venezuela, as everybody knows, is above the equator. It's not below the equator. Hello? Like, seriously, is there anything between those ears? Now, I'm telling you, this was such a pitiful, disastrous performance. As Scott Jennings on CNN said, she crapped the bed. Not to put it crudely, but he's right. She crapped the bed. Now, what's going to happen to AOC? We shall see. Will this destroy her politically on the national stage to run for vice president or president? I think she's finished.
Would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is this is, of course, a very long-standing policy.
Sorry, God, boy, is she dumb. Oh, my God, is she dumb. And they want her to be the VP for either Kamala 2.0. Kamala, by the way, wants to run again. Or Gavin Newsom. That's the plan. Okay? And she would be like the number 2, the VP pick, against a potential Vance Rubio ticket. So they want, basically, she's going to be going up against Rubio. Oh, my God. I mean, he'll debate circles around her. Oh, my God. She's even dumber than Waltz. So this woman is going to be an albatross around the neck of the Democratic Party if they want to run her in 2028, either as their presidential candidate or as their VP. Take your pick as their vice presidential candidate. 617-266-6868 is the number. Look, I think it's very, very obvious. I think there's no question now. It's still 3 years. 3 years is a long time in politics. Obviously, a lot of things can happen. But you see that speech. You watch that speech by Rubio. And that was one of the best speeches I've ever heard. Now, whatever you think about Rubio, look, I'm a J.D. Vance man. Barring some, unforeseen disaster, I am going to be supporting J.D. Vance in the primary in 2028. I believe he's the heir. I truly do believe he's the heir apparent to Trump, to America First, to MAGA. Rubio, to me, has done a very good job as Secretary of State, and I think he'd be amazing as Vance's number 2, as the VP, and they would be a very powerful, almost an unbeatable ticket. I remember the Gang of Eight. I remember how he pushed for amnesty. And this was, 12 years ago or 13 years ago. He's still, in my view, too much of a war hawk, too much of a military interventionist for my taste. But overall, you can't deny the fact he has done an extremely good job as both Secretary of State and National Security Advisor. People forget that. He's wearing multiple hats. He's a ferocious worker. He's very smart, very intelligent. He's telegenic. He's a great debater. He's got tremendous experience. He's of Cuban descent, which I think is going to play well with the Latino community. He brings a lot of assets to the table. And you put Rubio up against AOC, holy shamoli. I mean, it's going to be a bloodbath. And maybe the Democrats now are starting to figure it out. We'll see. We'll see. Listen now to Scott Jennings on CNN. He's the only conservative they have. And look, they're trying to still say that she did well. I'm not making this up. CNN was still trying to pretend that nobody saw what they saw and nobody heard what they heard. And Jennings was looking at him and saying, look, I don't want to be the skunk at the party, but someone's got to tell the truth. Roll cut 17, Mike.
Look, this Munich Security Conference put on full blast the fact that we've only got one adult political party in the United States right now, and it's the Republican Party. Marco Rubio gave the speech of a lifetime over there. He laid out a clear foreign policy vision that defends Western values and Western civilization. And the brightest Democrat over there, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, crapped the bed, okay? She wants to be president, she wants to run, and she's one of the most popular Democrats and gave one of the most embarrassing performances you could possibly do.
He's completely right. He's completely right. And look, he kind of took the words out of my mouth. When I saw the clip, I said, no, he's right. Rubio is an adult. J.D. Vance is an adult. Trump obviously is an adult, meaning they're serious, they're responsible. You got a party of lunatics and juvenile social justice warriors in the Democratic Party. And by the way, it wasn't just AOC, to be fair. It was Gavin Newsom. He's lurking at that Munich Security Conference, undermining Trump, telling them, hey, hang on, I'm going to win in 3 years. And when I win in 3 years, I'm going to undo everything that Trump has done. So to all you Euro-globalist socialists, to all you Eurocrats out there, hang on. To the European left, hang on. Just hang on for 3 years, and I will be back, and we will undo everything. We'll restore the status quo. And Whitmer was as well, but she was also there. And another one, dumb as a box of rocks. So they're undermining Trump. They're actually conducting foreign policy on the behalf of the United States to sabotage Trump. And yet, Newsom is in love with himself. He's by the way, he really head over heels. He's in love with himself and has turned California into a disaster zone. But the European leftists love him because he's one of their own. He's a globalist through and through. You've got the communist Sandy the Commie Cortez, AOC, who made a fool of herself, and Whitmer, who's just looking around blank the whole time, like just blank. Listen now to President Trump, because I think he's right. They embarrassed us. They humiliated the United States. This is not a good look for us. To have people like Gavin Newsom and AOC and Gretchen Whitmer speaking on behalf of the United States at one of the most prestigious, important security conferences in the world. Roll cut. This is Trump on Air Force One. Roll cut 3. Mike.
I watched AOC answering questions in Munich. This was not a good look for the United States. I watched Gavin Newsom answering questions in Munich, and this was a bad look for our country. These two people are incompetent. And at least Hillary's competent. She's just Trump deranged. She was so deranged. She is an angry woman, but I watched the other two speaking and answering basic questions. Look, Gavin has destroyed California. And AOC, I never heard her speak very much, and they started answering questions. She had no idea what was happening. She had no idea how to answer, very important questions concerning the world. But she can't answer questions concerning New York City either, because New York City is got some problems.
You think. Okay. Look, let me ask all of you. Is AOC finished now as a serious presidential or vice presidential candidate? Did we just see a major Democratic leader blow up in front of everyone's faces? I'm not saying she's finished domestically because too many moonbats love her, but as a serious political force on the national stage, as a presidential candidate, as a vice presidential candidate, has AOC now committed political suicide? And what did you make of Rubio's speech? Is Vance Rubio now looking like an unbeatable ticket in 2028? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, and you may be right. You may be right. This audience, Kuhner Country, you've been right so many times. I would never bet against you. Believe me. But many of you, at least going by the text line, 70470, you don't think AOC is finished. Again, I'm not talking domestically. I'm not talking as a member of Congress, but in terms as a national force for the Democratic Party, as a potential VP, even presidential candidate, many of you are saying no, Jeff. You're not, you're underestimating the stupidity of the average Democrat voter. You and I see a box of rocks. They see strategic brilliance in her performance at Munich. Anyway, let me just read one quick text, then I want to go to the phone lines. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from 603. Jeff, here's my assessment of why the Democrats will attempt to run a Newsom-Cortez ticket in 2028. It goes back to the old adage, sex sells. Is it because Gavin Newsom has proven himself as this standout among governors with keen leadership skills, strategic policies to turn California around and make it the envy of the nation? No. It's because Newsom has Romney-like hair, a Ken doll face. He's politically well-connected, and he has a record of towing the toxic Democrat line. So how about AOC? Is she a rising star because of her amazing intellect and mastery of politics? No, it's because she checks a few boxes, and despite all this criticism of her, she's not hard to look at. So there you go. That's my assessment of the ticket. It's all window dressing, all sizzle, no steak. Interesting. Heather in Wareham. Thanks for holding, Heather, and welcome.
Hi, Jeffrey. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure, Heather.
Yeah, I don't ever think I've ever disagreed with you. But at first, when you played her clip, I was like, oh, he's right. She's done. But then I started thinking about it. And I don't think so, because look at Kamala Harris. I mean, look at the stupid people that voted for her. And I mean, she kept, putting her foot in her mouth, over and over and over again. And the other thing I want to say is, you got these. By
the way, that's a very good point. Heather, honestly, that's a really good point. I don't mean to cut you off, but that is a very good point. But anyway, please keep going.
You have these, I can't be nice, like these stupid people that just don't know anybody. And let me just say this before I go on. I never followed politics ever until Trump, and actually until COVID, because COVID woke my eyes up, because it never made sense to me. And I always thought that's when I started really paying attention. Now, I voted for Trump. I was all Trump in 2016. But with that being said, I never really paid attention. Just to get that out there. And I still don't know a lot. When it comes to wars and that stuff, I'm not going to pretend that I know anything, because I really don't. With that being said, COVID really started, and this really, you were the one that started getting me into it, just so you know, because my ex-boyfriend had you on, and I'm like, who is this guy? He's awesome. And so I started listening to you every day since then, and you were the one that really started having me think and really getting into all this stuff, into the politics and trying to understand what's really going on. With that being said, I find that you got these crazy, and I think it's the woman. I swear, you said it last week. I think it was last week. I think it's these women, I hate to say it, my sister included, my sister out in Colorado, these liberal women, I don't understand. They think, they would vote for Cortez just because she's a woman. They wouldn't vote for her. They're not going to look at her policies. You know what I mean? Like my fiance, he does not like Trump. He voted for Trump, but he does not like his personality. I said, you don't have to like his personality. You got to look at his policies. And like, I understand because I get why some people don't like his personality. I love his personality, but you don't have to like the personality. You got to look at the policies because he doesn't really follow politics. So I digress. But anyway,
No, Heather, look, I think you're making a very good point. I think for the Democratic Party, the Democratic base, here, let's just take Bill in Sudbury, okay? To me, he's the barometer. He's your typical average moonbat. So yesterday he called at the end of the show, and to make, long story short, I was arguing about we need to have a meritocratic society based on merit. And especially when you're dealing with surgeons and doctors and pilots and police officers and, right down the line, firefighters, you need to have a society where it is the best person for the job. And you don't want to lower standards, whether it be admissions or, applications or whatever. Why? Because if you start lowering standards, people are going to get killed. It's just that simple. So you want to be colorblind. You want to be race blind. You want to just judge by test scores and, grades and transcripts. That's the most important thing. Skills. Who's the best person for the job? He's shouting and screaming racism. And, and I'm like what's racist about equality under the law and equality of opportunity? You want the best person for the job, period. This is what I'm saying. You're dealing with people who are insane, who, by the way, are racist themselves, because what they're really telling you is they don't think, unless they get help, that black people can be good surgeons, or that black people can be good doctors, or that black people can be good pilots. Just like they, saying they can't really produce voter ID, that they're too stupid to produce photo voter ID. Okay, it's deeply condescending and it's deeply racist. Okay, but never mind. Their answer is racist, 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 racist. And I'm like, they're not right in the head. They don't understand, A equals B, B equals C, therefore A equals C. They don't understand basic logic. So you're dealing with idiots and fanatics. You're right. Many feminists who are Democrats will vote for a woman just because she's a woman. That's it. Especially if it's a minority woman. Okay? That's even for them. That checks multiple boxes. And that's what it's all about. Whether she's intelligent, whether she's experienced, whether she's skilled, whether she can do the job, it doesn't matter. Whether her policies will be utterly destructive, it doesn't matter. It's the plumbing. That's all that matters is what's between forgive me, but it's, the skin color and what's between the legs. It's really disgusting. It's incredibly condescending, but you're right. And I think AOC, look, you made a very strong argument when you said, Jeff, hey, they voted for Kamala. If they voted for Kamala, what, they're not going to vote for AOC? Okay, I'm not kidding. The hits just kept on coming. One after another at the Munich Security Conference. So, AOC mumbling, stumbling, making a fool of herself in question after question, answer after answer. And she spoke after Rubio, just so that you understand. And I'm going to play just in about maybe half an hour, about an hour maybe tops, some parts of Rubio's speech, which are incredibly powerful. By the way, very true. And very moving, and at times it was almost poetic. And there's one part of his speech, I'm definitely going to play it, and he's talking to Europeans and European leaders and European heads of state. And the context is important. And he's saying, look, we're all intertwined. Europe, the United States, we form the basis of Western culture and Western civilization and the Western heritage. And America has gotten so much from European countries that we wouldn't be America without the influence of Europe. And so he talks about, the Anglo-Scots-Irish and what they gave, and the Germans and what they gave, and the Italians and what they gave, and the Dutch and what they gave. And he starts going down, and he says, by the way, as someone who is a descendant of Spaniards, I mean, he's Cuban descent, but he says, my ancestors hundreds of years ago, believe it or not, they were from Spain. And you may not know this, but it was the Spaniards who introduced horses into Latin America, in particular to Mexico. And so, the cowboy, the ranch, the rodeo, that all originated in Spain. And it was imported to the Americas, especially to Mexico, and then it spread from there. Okay? Now, by the way, it's undeniably true. It's historically undeniably true. Listen to Sandy Cortez. Listen to AOC. Roll cut 16, because she found that very offensive. Roll cut 16. Mike.
Rubio's speech was a pure appeal to Western culture. My favorite part was when he said that American cowboys came from Spain.
I thought they came from Winnetou, but
I believe the Mexicans and descendants of African enslaved peoples would like to have a word on that.
Oh my God, is she stupid? Oh my God, what a loser! Oh my God, what a loser! Oh my God, I would be embarrassed to be this stupid. Really, I'm serious. Like, I just wouldn't. The expression, better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. Okay? That this woman can't, she keeps opening her mouth. And it's like, fool. Like, please shut up. It's embarrassing. Shut up. You realize that it was Mexico is a product of Spain. You understand that? That it was a colony of Spain. Hello? Yeah? Do you know? I don't know. Do you know that? Sandy Ocasio-Cortez, AOC? Do you know that? That the Spaniards came to Mexico, and it was a colony of Mexico. Oh my God. Now, this is just my take, and then I want to hear from you. I'm asking you a very tough poll question today. I don't envy Kuhner country today. I really don't, okay? Take the Taiwan answer. The policy. It's policy. It's our policy. Say what you want about Kamala Harris. Yes, she was stupid. Yes, she's dumb. Heather made an excellent point. Democrats vote for some of the stupidest people all the time. Just look at Kamala Harris. Very true. Very true. Very true. But I think Kamala, how do I say this, is a bit of a better BSer. I know it's a word salad, but she would get, she would throw in, Beijing, Taiwan, weapons. Like, she would throw, it's incoherent, but at least there would be some words jumbled in there to make it seem that she's trying to say something profound. This was just, I mean, this. So I think Kamala is a tad smarter than AOC. You may disagree with me. And listen, look, to each his own on this. But I think Kamala is a tad brighter than AOC. I could be wrong. So anyway, the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Aluminum. Here it is, my friends. This could break your brain. It may break my brain. Who is more stupid? Who is more stupid? A, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And by the way, she's in the lead right now. B, Kamala Harris. C, Gavin Newsom. Oh, man, do I have you in a pickle or what? I bet many of you are like, well, AOC, nah, I got to go Kamala. Yeah, look at Gavin Newsom. There's nothing between those ears. What an airhead. Let me go back to AOC. Let me go to Kamala. Oh, no, I got to go with Newsom. My advice is go with the first one that comes, because you're going to kill yourself. I'm telling you, you're going to get a breakdown by just, is it A, is it B, is it C? Is back to A, to B, no, to C. Just the first one that comes to your head and press the button and move on, because you're going to be tied up in knots the whole day. So let me do it one more time. Who is more stupid? A, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. B, Kamala Harris. C, Gavin Newsom. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN as in national ER. Or you can vote via X. I was active last night on X. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, KUHN as in national ER. Oh, how would I vote on this? I never thought anybody could be stupider than Kamala, especially when she's drunk. When she's drunk, ay. Newsom's pretty dumb, too. Very dumb. Whew. AOC. That's it. That's it. I got to move on now. 617-266-6868. I would vote AOC and just move on because I'm going to change my mind. Larry in Arkansas. Thanks for holding, Larry, and welcome.
Well, good morning, Jeff, my fellow Catholic. It is Ash Wednesday.
It is Ash Wednesday. I'm going to get my ashes later today, Larry. If you don't mind me asking, what are you giving up for Lent?
Well, sir, I tried giving up sarcasm.
Look at this. Now he sounds like a robot. Larry, you were a human being, and then something happened with the connection, and, you're like, all right, let's see if we can make that connection again with Larry where he can sound like an actual person. Larry, do we have you, my friend?
Are you there?
No, Larry, you still sound like a robot, like some kind of an android from Star Wars. All right, let's maybe the third time will be the charm. Let's do this, Mike. Poor Larry. Ash Wednesday. By the way, I'm giving up sweets. People always ask me, what do you give up for Lent? It's got to be something you really feel. Can't just be something that's nothing. It's got to be something that brings you closer to Jesus, and you feel it. I mean, it's something you crave, you want, whatever. It's a sacrifice. Cookies, chocolate, you name it, ice cream, all sweets, including chips. Mike is saying you can't eat any of that stuff. Mike says, you're a diabetic, for God's sake. You're not supposed to eat that anyway. I'm just saying, Mike, I don't touch any sweets and no chips. Well, Mike, I'm just telling you the truth. I mean, it's a sacrifice for me, trust me, I'm going to feel it. I'm already feeling it. I haven't even taken the ashes yet, and I'm feeling it. Okay, Larry, do we have you, my friend?
Jeff, can you hear me now?
Yes. Oh, you're a human being again. Okay, Larry, what are you giving up for Lent?
I was trying to give up being sarcastic, but I've already failed twice this morning. So, like you, I am giving up sweets. Last night was my birthday, so I had some birthday dessert, and that's it for another 6 weeks. So, Jeff, to piggyback off Heather, let's go back to 2020. Why did Kamala drop out?
Oh, in 2020? Well, with Biden?
Yes. The primary.
Yeah, in the primary. Well, she was a disaster.
She had what, 1% or 0?
Yeah. Under 1%. Under 1%, Larry.
And to talk about how, like you're saying, how stupid they are, she lost that. She piggybacked off the dementia patient, and then she became the brightest person in the room in their eyes. Now, Shapiro, as an example, is far more intelligent than Timmy.
You're talking about Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania.
Exactly.
Correct?
Yes,
Go ahead. Yes.
Far superior to Timmy. And who did they choose? They had to choose someone actually dumber than Kamala. That's how bad it was. Because you can't have a vice president who's technically smarter sounding than the presidential nominee. So let's say Gavin gets it. They're going to pick someone actually dumber to be the running mate. The Democrats have the same problem we had about 20 years ago. Remember when the establishment kept trying to pick our candidates for us? We got Dole. We got McManiac. We got the other hair.
Romney.
Romney, thank you. And then finally we put our foot down and we chose. And look how successful we've been since we've been having our say. The Democrats are currently going through what we went through 20 years ago. Think about it. They had Bernie set in 2016. The establishment come in, no, we know better than you plebes. We're giving you this Clinton girl. And I know AOC is overshadowing it, but she got her butt handed to her over there. She got royally smacked around by that, I want to say not Czech, maybe Czech, the Czech Republic guy.
Yes, he's the deputy prime minister of the Czech Republic. He torched Hillary. I'm going to play the cut, Larry, so people understand. But go ahead. You're right. No, he torched her. He humiliated her.
How bad that is. 15 years ago, maybe 16. Do you think anyone would have thought about crossing Hillary like that? And he torched her.
Oh, he did. No, he did. Larry, so you're basically saying that the Democrats now are in a suicidal mood. And they're not thinking with whatever brain they have left. This is the establishment calling the shots. The decrepit, rotten, corrupt, declining establishment. Hillary Clinton being a symbol of that. Who's now getting smacked around at the Munich Security Conference by a deputy prime minister from the Czech Republic. And that basically now they had someone who, whatever you think of Bernie Sanders, had charisma, obviously had some momentum. People in the party genuinely had affection for him. He could have run a much better campaign than either Hillary or Biden or Kamala. The problem is, Larry, I don't see anybody out there that's a potential serious candidate. Like, leave aside, take away Gavin Newsom, take away Kamala Harris, take away, obviously AOC. Who do the Democrats have? I mean, seriously, in terms of, as an adult, a responsible person that could, somehow semi-effectively govern and run the country. Who do they have? Josh Shapiro? Gretchen Whitmer, she's a disaster. I'm just going down the list. What, Amy Klobuchar? She's got the personality of a rock. So, who do they have, Larry? I think that's their problem. They don't have a bench. Our bench is super deep. We've got Vance. We've got Rubio. You can just keep going and going. We've got Ron DeSantis. I know some people don't like him, but DeSantis would be a very powerful candidate. You could just go on, on and on and on. We have some real political talent on our side. They've got, Josh Shapiro? Is that all they have? What say you, Larry?
To that, I do have one question for you. Who was that Spanish explorer that brought those horses to Mexico? What was his name?
Cortez. Larry, it's stunning that she doesn't know about the conquistadors. That's something people learn in junior high or in high school. It's truly shocking. So, Larry, let me ask you, do the Democrats have anybody that's a semi-serious candidate that they could run in 2028?
Who they had, past tense, had. They had Tulsi Gabbard. What'd they do to her?
Well, they chased her out of the party.
They actually, at one time, had President Trump. What'd they do to him?
They chased him out of the party.
And they chased Elon out of the party. The bright, shining stars, they keep running off. Tulsi Gabbard's fatal flaw was she outshined Hillary. And that was unacceptable. They had to get rid of her. She was a top choice, but they had no choice. And that's the state of the Democratic Party today.
Larry, that's a really good point. As usual, really good point. Larry, thank you so much for that call. By the way, I think Tulsi Gabbard, had she remained a Democrat, would have been a very dangerous candidate for Republicans. She would have posed a real challenge. I mean, she's got charisma. She's obviously a minority woman, so that's big for the Democrats, but she's got charisma. She's good on some, very good on some positions and some policy issues. She's, serves in the National Guard. She's military. I mean, this woman has a compelling biography. She's a good, effective speaker. Obviously, she's highly intelligent. This woman brought a lot to the table. She could have carried the Democrats very far. So I'm happy she's on our team. Don't get me wrong. But Larry is right. They've been pushing out talent after talent after talent. The biggest one, was Donald Trump. They forced Evil Orange Man out of the party. And it's cost them now dearly. 617-266-6868. Okay, thank you for that call, as always, Larry. Just very quick, because Larry mentioned it. So this was at the Munich Security Conference. It's a panel, and there's a moderator, and he's the Deputy Prime Minister. Peter Machinka is his name. And Hillary Clinton is just tearing into Trump. He's a dictator. He's a fascist. He's a white supremacist. Now they're saying he's going to cancel or suspend the midterm elections. I mean, they're losing their minds, and they're doing it on foreign soil. He's a king, and on and on. So the Czech Deputy Prime Minister, and this would have been unthinkable even 5 years ago, pretty much laughs in Hillary's face. You can't see it. It's an audio cut, but he's got this smirk, and he's almost looking at her like, lady, are you okay? Like, you're unhinged. Like, listen to yourself talk. You're talking like a crazy woman. And so she's getting more heated with her eyes about to pop out of her skull. And frankly, she looks like a jerk. And he's very calm, very cool, but he's got this smirk on his face, almost like, are you for real? Like, lady, you're losing your marbles. And listen to what he says to her. It's the way he says it. It's the tone. It's everything. He humiliated her. He torched her. And the room couldn't believe what was happening in front of their eyes. Hillary Clinton was being put in her place by some unknown guy. No offense to Machinka, but from some unknown guy from the freaking Czech Republic. Roll cut 20. Mike.
What I think Trump is doing in America, I think it is reaction for something for some policies that really went too far from the regular people, too far from reality. So, we saw the cancel culture. We saw the woke revolution. I don't agree with the gender revolution, the climate alarmism.
Which gender? Women having their rights? Let Peter go on.
I think there are two genders. So, but some of
half of us? Can we have our rights?
Some of us think that there is more than two gender. I think there is male and female, and the rest probably is a social construct. So this is something that went too far.
But does that justify selling out the people of Ukraine who are on the front lines dying to save their freedom and their two genders? If that's what you're worried about?
Can I please finish my points? I'm sorry that that makes you nervous. I'm really sorry for that.
I'm really sorry for that, if that makes you nervous. I'm very sorry for that. So basically, she has a meltdown. He's selling out Ukraine! Don't talk to me about cancel culture or transgenderism or the woke revolution or the climate eco-madness, the policies that we've enacted, the eco-lunacy policies. Don't talk to me, or open borders, or unlimited third world immigration, no, don't talk to me about that. It's Ukraine. By the way, he sent them another, how many billions of dollars in arms? Again, another massive aid package. Zelensky himself came out and said if it wasn't for Trump, he would have fallen by now. So I don't even know what this woman's talking about. But let that go. She's rambling and raving about Ukraine as this deputy prime minister is saying, you want to know why you Democrats lost? You guys went too extreme on everything. And Trump's election was a reaction to your left-wing lunacy. And he told her to her face. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, before we go back to the blazing phone lines, Wednesday, 7:20-ish, you know what that means. Truth or troll. Take it away, Mike.
And now, America's favorite game show, where you get to decide on the Kuhner Report. This is Truth or Troll.
Today's entry for Truth or Troll comes from Vice President J.D. Vance in an interview with Fox News when he is asked by Martha McCallum if he would like to be president of the United States. Here's what J.D. had to say.
But surely, as vice president, you'd like to be president.
Would I? Well, look, I think, again, I'm going to try to do as good of a job as I can right now. So one of the things that I don't like about this question and this entire perspective is I've been in this job for all of a year. About a year and 6 months ago, I asked the American people to give me this job that I have right now. Why don't I do as good of a job as I can in this job? We'll worry about the next job sometime in the future.
So he kind of throws a little bit of cold water on it, it seems. But, I mean, can you really tell? I mean, would I? And then he laughs it off. Is he telling the truth here, or is he just trolling?
Well, Mike, let me ask you this. What'd you think of his answer? Just overall, regardless, truth or troll. What'd you make of his answer?
I think, personally, I didn't think he really wanted to answer that question now. And I think he was just kind of like, let me just kind of push this off and play it off like I don't necessarily want it when I mean, you want that job.
Of course. Like. Who doesn't want to be president of the United States? No, Mike, you're dead on. Look, by the way, I thought it was a very good answer. I thought it was a very, very good, smart answer. But no, look, I think on one level he's being sincere. I mean, I would say part of it is truth. He realizes that the presidency of Trump hangs in the balance in the next 3 years. And if he wants to get the baton and continue the Trump revolution, and he is the heir apparent, it's going to have to be a very successful 3 years. He's essentially going to be running on Trump's record. So yeah, we want the next 3 years to really go very well, because I'll have no chance of winning in 2028 unless it does. So I think on one level, yeah, he's telling the truth. Look, we're focused on the next 3 years. But come on, let's be honest. Deep down, he wants to be president. Rubio wants to be president. Hegseth wants to be president. I mean, who doesn't want to be president? I mean, it's the most coveted job in the world. You're the leader of the free world. So, is there some truth? Yes. But, is it truth or troll? I think he's trolling. Of course he's trolling. You know, do I? Do I really want to be president? No, you do, JD. No, you do. And a lot of other people in Trump's cabinet as well. But anyway, so JD says he's focused on the next 3 years. And he's really not thinking about running for president right now in 2028. Truth or troll? I say it's troll. What say you? You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn is in national ER. And as always, you can vote via X. My handle there, all one word, baby, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn is in national ER. Mags in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mags, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call, and God bless you, Sandy and Mike, for everything that you do every day.
Thank you, Mags.
So I am going to vote tie, because I think all three of them are just as dumb as the next person. They're all three dumb as a box of rocks, and so I have to write tie. Okay, I'm putting in V, tie. I hope you don't mind. Listen, I loved Larry's call. I believe that everything that he said is correct. I loved Heather's call because what she said about women is absolutely correct, about dumb women voting for other dumb women, which I don't really understand. Another thing I can't wrap my head around is AOC being able to do anything at this point, because she should be under an investigation for everything she's done to us. So she's stupid, but she's sly as a fox, Jeff, because she's ripped us off blind and gotten away with it so far. Am I right or wrong?
No, you're right. I mean, on that sense, she's very clever. She's very shrewd. She's very astute. And to give her due, look, I think nationally she would be a joke. I think she'd be another Tim Walz. I think she'd be a real vulnerability for Democrats. She'd be making gaffe after gaffe, like this, what you just saw at the Munich Security Conference. The kind of gaffe where you just say, we can't vote for these people. I mean, they're just not right in the head. But, you know, having said all this, she's got Chuck Schumer on the ropes, Mags. If she wants to primary Schumer, she's going to have to make a decision about the next year. Do I want to go for, run for the presidential nomination and probably end up with the VP slot? Because I don't think she's going to win. But I think she'll do well enough that they'll want to court her to be the VP, to be the Veep. Or do I want to primary Schumer and become senator Ocasio-Cortez? Because I'll be honest with you, Mags, poll after poll after poll, they show in New York with all those crazy liberals and moonbats. Remember now, the Bills in Sudbury and the Chris's in Gloucester are a majority there. They're the ones that put Mamdani in office in New York City. So these are her people. She runs in the primary. She beats Schumer. So, she may not get the Veep. She may decide to go for the Senate. But if she goes for the Senate, and he's the Senate minority leader, he's the Democrats' top dog in the Senate. And she can beat him in a primary. In fact, she will beat him in a primary. That's not, as they say, that's not chicken feed. That's serious stuff. I mean, so she has an impressive political machine behind her. Mags, can you hang on? I want to come back to you because I'm up against a break. But Mags's point is, don't underestimate AOC. She is corrupt. She's shrewd. She's clever.
Would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is of course a very long-standing policy.
May God help us. Can you imagine if it's a Newsom AOC ticket and they win in 2028? And this imbecile that you just heard right now is the vice president of the United States, a heartbeat away from the presidency? Oh, my God. May God help us. May God help us. 734 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, let's go right back to Mags in New Hampshire. Mags was making the point, and I think it's a very good point. Don't underestimate AOC. Yeah, she's dumb as a box of rocks, no question. But she's a formidable politician here in the United States. She's got a very powerful machine behind her. And look, she could potentially knock off Chuck Schumer in a primary. That's no small feat. So we underestimate her at our peril. Mags, please pick up where you left off.
Just afraid that she has people behind her that we don't know about, Jeff, because she couldn't have gone as far as she has, nor could she rip us off as much as she has without having powerful people behind her. I have no idea who that is, I'll be honest with you, but I think she could take out Chuck Schumer, okay? From everything that I've been watching and how nervous he is, I definitely think she could take him out, which, again, why aren't we pressing charges against her? This is where I'm a little bit taken back, and maybe you can explain it to me, Jeff. All of these people, these government employees that are working for us, that have actually stolen and ripped us off blind, are getting away with it. Why? And how come? Because Pam Bondi should be taking them all aside and saying, okay, we're stripping you of all your money. We're pressing charges against you. You're probably going to prison and military tribunals. You ripped off the people that you work for. This is where I have a huge issue. Can you explain to me why we're not doing anything to these people? Even Nancy Pelosi, people in Massachusetts, Ayanna Pressley. You know that they had no money when they started. We've all talked about it over and over again. So what are we doing about it? Because they shouldn't be allowed to run for anything. Because they're thieves.
Oh, Max, you're not 100, as I like to say. You're 1,000% correct. The problem is, I think Pam Bondi is too afraid. I think she's a yellow-livered coward. And she doesn't want to rock the boat. But, Mags, I think, to be even more brutally honest with you, since it's Ash Wednesday, let me use a religious analogy that I like, which is, let me be honest with you, like I'm in the confessional. AOC, if you go after her, she will tell her allies in Antifa, in Black Lives Matter, all these anti-ICE agitators, these Marxist thugs, burn it down. Ayanna Pressley would say the same thing. Burn it down. Ilhan Omar, burn it down. Take it to the streets. The Democrats use political violence over and over and over again, and they've shown us they're not afraid to use political violence. So, she would play the gender card, the race card. Look, AOC would come out and say they're coming after all women. They're coming after all Latinas. She would inflame and incite, and she would tell people, take it to the streets. And I'm telling you, her followers would take it to the streets. And I think that's the dirty little secret in American politics, is that the Democratic Party is now not just a communist party, but it is increasingly now a very violent party. It is a party of the violent criminal left. And whenever they want to get something done, they resort to rioting, to looting, to taking over the streets, to clashing with police, to executions, to assassinations. They killed Charlie Kirk. They almost killed Donald Trump twice. They're not afraid to murder or attack their opponents. And Republicans know that. So look, the Muslims put a fatwa on your head. The liberals, it's basically a fatwa, but they just take it to the streets. And Pam Bondi does not want to have a liberal fatwa on her head. She goes after AOC. They will burn her down to the ground. Look, that's the one thing I have to say about Democrats, to give the devil their due, and I'm going to give you the final word on this, Max. They impeached Donald Trump twice. They didn't care that it was unprecedented. They didn't care that it was over nothing. They arrested a former president of the United States of America again on nothing, on trumped up charges, made up manufactured charges. That was unheard of in the United States before. They wanted to take him off the ballot. They took it to the Supreme Court. Unheard of in America. Jail him, imprison him, bankrupt him, shoot him, assassinate him, kill him. So for them, there are no limits. They're willing, in the pursuit of power, they will do anything. By the way, including launch a civil war. They launched the Civil War of 1861. Let's be very clear. And they're threatening to do it again. So, in a sense, they're becoming a terrorist organization, bit by bit. A criminal terrorist organization. They use political violence and political terror and the threat of violence and terror to go after their opponents, but also to shield them from any legal consequences. So Pam Bondi knows, Trump knows, look, why do you think they're pulling out of Minnesota? You had Homan come out and give this pathetic speech. Our mission is accomplished. Your mission is not accomplished. There are still thousands of criminal, violent, illegal aliens you have not captured in Minneapolis. You haven't. You're pulling out because they rioted and rioted and rioted, and they took it to the streets, and eventually you guys said it's not worth it, let's pull out. So, look, look, say what you want about Mamdani. He's not afraid. He's not afraid. And, and if you want, if he'll take it to the streets. He's not afraid to riot. He's not afraid to get his people to loot and to plunder. So that's the difference between them and us. They've now embraced a cult of violence. Our side is trying to avoid violence at all costs. And that makes our side timid and afraid. And that's what it is. It's fear. What say you, Mags? Final word.
I say this, Jeff. I'm disgusted with the Republican Party that we're afraid. I'm afraid of nothing. And if we have to go to war to get our country back, that's what we need to do. Because this is disgusting. These people are allowed to break the law, do whatever they want. There's no consequences for them. And I'm sick of it. There has to be consequences for these people. If we went out and arrested all these people that were rioting and looting, we wouldn't have it anymore. If we weren't such babies or afraid, it's scary that we're using that word, afraid, because we should be afraid of nothing. These people have ripped us off blindly, and we have allowed it to happen. We need to grab our ankles, get together, and sit there and go after these people and fight back, not roll over. I'm done with the rolling over. People need to get it together. Thank you for your time, Jeff. I appreciate you so much. God bless you, and have a wonderful day, everybody.
God bless you. Happy Ash Wednesday. God bless you, Mags. Look, I mean, that's what I've been saying from the beginning. We need a different attorney general. You need a fighter. That's all, period. That's really what you need. And things will get settled very quickly. But look, make no mistake about it. Okay, let's just let that go for a second. What you saw in Munich was a disaster for AOC. I know the left is trying to protect her, and they're trying to circle the wagons, and they're trying to sweep it under the rug. But when you compare Rubio to AOC, there is no comparison. There's no comparison. Whether it's in intelligence, in statesmanship, in gravitas, just right down the line, in charisma, in presence on the world stage. I mean, that's an embarrassment. That this is one of the people we send to represent the United States. It's embarrassing. And let me just say this. What I find unbelievable is how Democrats now will go to a foreign country in front of an international group of leaders and openly spit on and badmouth the United States of America. Just run our country down. We used to never do this. And so, maybe they're not our enemies, but they're our competitors, they're our adversaries. And what this does is deliberately undermines our country, and it's done to sabotage the President of the United States. Okay, in regards to our poll question of the day, many of you are telling me, Jeff, it's too tough a poll question. Can we just say they're all equally stupid? Don't ask me to choose. I can't choose. So anyway, this is from 781. Jeff, can't they all be equally stupid? It took each of them an hour and a half to watch 60 Minutes. So the poll question of the day, for those of you just tuning in, sponsored by Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Who is more stupid? Who's the most stupid? A, AOC, B, Kamala Harris, C, Gavin Newsom. Good luck, because this is not an easy one. Lou in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Lou, and welcome.
Yeah, how you doing, Jeff? I don't want to get sidetracked by your last call, but I do want to say one quick thing about the legal system in this country. The legal system has been taken over, and law schools have been taken over by so many liberals. I don't know if you can even find a strong conservative lawyer out there, or attorney general, or judge out there. And I think the thing is, even if you prosecute them, you take them in front of liberal judges, and they'll all get off. And that's the big problem in this country today. Is the legal system has fallen a lot, maybe not completely, but has fallen a lot to the left. And we do have the Supreme Court, thank goodness. But anyway, here's what I wanted to get to. The main point is that, the main point is that what we had over the weekend is Marco Rubio coming out with a strong defense of Western civilization, and the Democrats going over there who want to tear down Western civilization, along with their jihadist allies and the Chinese and on other notorious figures around the world. And the thing that gets me, and I go back to even your first caller, she's wondering about these liberal women out there who are anxious to vote for AOC. AOC got her degree at BU in economics and international relations, and she doesn't even know that Venezuela is above the equator and not below the equator. I mean, we're talking about somebody who should go and demand a refund from BU. But the thing is that we've got millions and millions of people who are college graduates for these universities who are teaching them nothing but anti-Western civilization material and communist material and jihadist material. And many have gotten grants from places like Qatar and China and Saudi Arabia and all these other places. So that's where the stupid base comes from. We have a huge stupid base in this country, and if you look at like New York and other states, they have no voter ID. So that's where you get the combination of votes to maybe even oust somebody like Schumer in New York. And by the way, I just learned that we have 50 votes for the SAFE Act with Susan Collins, and now Vice President Vance got to get his rear end into the Senate chambers and vote as number 51 and pass that thing, because that's what we need more than anything. I say it every week. We've been saying it every week.
Oh, you're right. No, that was a big development over the weekend, or actually late last week and going into the weekend. Susan Collins is now signed on. She's the 50th vote for the SAVE Act. So, and with JD obviously as the tiebreaker, now the Democrats are going to filibuster. So they're going to have to try to bust through that filibuster. But we at least have the votes. Now we got to pressure Thune to break that filibuster. And then we're going to have the SAVE Act. And once you pass the SAVE Act, I think the Democrats are in big trouble. Look, I know the Bills in Sudbury love AOC. I get it. But most Americans are not that stupid. They're just not. And what they saw over at Munich horrified them. So without voter fraud, without illegals voting, without dead people voting, without non-citizens voting, AOC can't win. The Democrats in most places can't win. They don't have a message. Their policies are what little they have are an absolute disaster. They're destructive. And let me tell you something else, Lou, that really bothered me about AOC. The fact that she's, unbelievably stupid, mind-numbingly stupid, frankly, shockingly dumb. Okay, shockingly dumb. But on top of that, she goes on and says there's no such thing as Western civilization. She says there's no such thing as Western culture. And you're like, what? And so, again, you see this alliance between the radical Islam and the radical left. Their desire to destroy the West and Western civilization. And the Democrats have been chipping away and chipping away and chipping away. They go on about how Western culture is first imperialistic, it's expansionist, it's colonialist, it's racist, it's homophobic, transphobic, blah, 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 blah. In other words, it's the worst culture and the worst civilization in the history of the world, when in fact it's the exact opposite. It is by far the best and the most superior civilization and culture in the history of the world. There's no doubt about it. But now they're trying to pretend it doesn't even exist. It's a phantom of everyone's imagination. Now, I got to tell you, when you start attacking the very foundations, the very underpinnings of the West, of our civilization, of our heritage, of our culture, of our inheritance, of the last 2,000 years, you're either unbelievably, shockingly, historically illiterate and stupid, okay, dumb, or you are one very radical, destructive human being. We're talking now, it's not even the Marxist left, because Karl Marx, I don't want to get into the weeds here, but, Marx supported the Enlightenment, Marx backed science, there were things about the West that they admired. The communists did. This is something unheard of. This is just burn the whole thing down to the ground. This is truly third world socialism. That's what this is. It's a love of the third world and transform the West into the third world. These people they're left-wing lunatics, and you never give people like this power, because all they do is destroy, destroy, destroy. And I think that's what we saw at Munich. If this woman came anywhere near actual power, the damage that she could do, it would be irreversible. You don't come back from someone like her. Lou, thank you very, very much for that call. Agree, disagree. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is AOC. Listen now to this. She lets the cat out of the bag. It's a shocking admission on her part. Because, the Democrats have been very good at divide and rule, at balkanizing, at dividing our country, polarizing our country. So notice, when the Democrats talk, there's something called black culture, there's Latino culture, there's Asian culture, there's gay culture, there's transgender culture, there's every subgroup you can possibly imagine has a quote-unquote culture, except white culture. Have you noticed that? Well, listen now to AOC. She's now essentially saying, we made up whiteness as a category. We just made it up. Roll cut. This is her speaking in Berlin. Roll cut 28. Mike.
I think this is what is so beautiful, right? In that they want this idea that a new world means a denial of our past. There's a very big difference between whiteness and national, like your actual culture, right? Whiteness is an imaginary thing. Being German is real. Being Italian is real. Being English. These are rich cultural heritages that are based on values, and they are so much a part of what make our cultures and our societies what they are. And we are also home to many other communities as well.
Now, notice, by the way, but there's black culture, according to the left. Now, tell me, what do the descendants of African Americans, African American slaves, what do they have in common with, say, somebody who immigrated from Jamaica? I'm just going to make some, just pick a country out of, or the Bahamas or Barbados or what? What do they have in common? Nothing. Or Haiti? Nothing. Literally nothing except the color of their skin. That's it. But you see, there's black culture. If you know anything about Latin America, you know that, the Cubans don't really get along with the Mexicans, who don't really get along with the Colombians, who don't really get along with the Venezuelans, who don't really get along with the Chileans, who don't really get along with the Argentinians. Yet, for the sake of political expediency, what do? They've made up, by the way, Hispanic is it's a political term. It was made up by the Democrats. The term Hispanic, you want to talk about something that's quote unquote a construct, something quote unquote that's imaginary. It was made up for political reasons to try to create this artificial voting bloc to pit them against whites and against blacks to help the Democratic Party. But no, it's okay. That there's a Latino culture. So apparently, Puerto Ricans and Cubans and Mexicans, and they're all the same. They're all the same. Okay? If you know anything about Asia, how many wars the Japanese and the Chinese fought? The Japanese and the Koreans fought. The Koreans and the Chinese fought. The Chinese and the Vietnamese fought. Okay? So but no. According to the Democrats, they're, quote, Asian culture. By the way, China and Japan, just to give an example, completely different religions, completely different languages, completely different heritages. I mean, they're like oil and water in terms of, on almost everything. So, but it doesn't matter. In America, they made it up. This thing, something called Asian culture. So this is what they do. They play the race card. And in fact, they invent entire categories only to divide and conquer, to divide and rule, to pit groups against each other. And now, suddenly, she goes to Europe, and suddenly now, whites are bad, whites are bad, white Americans are bad, white supremacy is everywhere. And now, all of a sudden, she basically, I don't know if she had too many drinks or whatever, drinky. I think it was just she's stupid. Honestly, she's just so dumb that she just has no filter. And she's like, well, let me tell you the truth. There really is no such thing as whiteness. It's just completely made up. I mean, you have Germans, you have Italians, you have English, you have this, you have that. But, whiteness, we just, we had to make that up. We needed an oppressor, and so we picked white people. At her core, and let's be very clear, what the globalists in Europe want, and this was Rubio's point, and it was J.D. Vance's point last year, and Rubio delivered it again, is that open borders, unlimited mass migration was deliberately designed to destroy Europe, to flood it with people from the third world so that Germany would no longer be German, Ireland would no longer be Irish, Italy would no longer be Italian, and here in America, to replace essentially the white population, the population of the founding fathers, and import third world peoples who are low skilled, very dependent upon government handouts, and who would be loyal to the Democratic Party. And that is the great replacement. And as Rubio said, it has been a disaster. It has been a disaster for every European nation. It has been a disaster for Canada. It has been a disaster for the United States. And if we don't fix it and fix it now, it is clearly the road to civilizational suicide. That's his point. He was trying to rally the West. And Rubio's argument, and he's completely right, is that we in the West, meaning Europe and North America, we share a common civilization, a common culture, in fact, a Christian heritage, a common culture, a common roots, Christian roots. And if we don't defend our heritage and our culture and our civilization, what makes the West distinctly the West, we're going to be destroyed from within. And once you're destroyed from within, there is no going back. It's done. It's over. The ancient Greeks are finished. The ancient Romans are finished. This has happened throughout history again and again and again and again. And so Rubio was sounding the alarm bell. And he was telling the Europeans, wake up, because you are now the architects of your own doom and your own demise, your own death. You cannot keep keeping your borders open. You can't. You can't keep turning a blind eye to Islam. You can't. You can't keep erasing your heritage and your culture and your language and your peoples, because eventually Germany will not be German, and Ireland will not be Irish, and England will not be English, and Italy will not be Italian, and America will cease to be America. Okay? America will cease to be American. You cannot be overrun by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of people who come from foreign cultures that are diametrically opposite of the West and who do not want or care to assimilate. It's akin to putting a bullet in a gun, and you just keep pulling the trigger. Eventually, it's going to blow your brains out. Click, ooh, didn't go off. Let's do it again. Click, oh, it didn't go off. Eventually, you keep doing it, it's going to blow your brains out. And that was Rubio's message. 617-266-6868. Russ in Boston. Thanks for holding, Russ, and welcome.
Happy George Washington's birthday, school President's Day. Long live the memory of our father of our country, George Washington. Okay.
Russ, I promise I'll give you all the time in the world. You know, you and I are so simpatico, man. We are such ideological soulmates. On Monday, I was thinking the exact same thing. I go, this should be George Washington's birthday. It was created initially for George Washington. He's one of the greatest men to ever walk the earth. It's not President's Day. It's not a day to sell cars. It's the birthday of our founding father. We should restore George Washington as it should be George Washington's Day, Washington's birthday. It's not President's Day. It's George Washington's Day. You are so right, Russ. Anyway, please, you are on a roll. Keep going.
Democratic Communist Party does not have a viable candidate for president. The only thing they have, as they've had for many years, is media spin. Again, that's all they have is media spin. Lies, a con game, without a question. Anyone who votes for the Democrats are politically stupid, without a shadow of a doubt. Leaders of the Democratic Party prove they cannot be trusted. Their answer is always blowing in the wind. They have no core values. To the leaders of the Democratic Party, God is a non-existent. They are not motivated by God, family, and country. They are motivated by greed and control. And never forget, greed is a cruel master. And I'll repeat it again. Greed is a cruel master, okay? And that's what these people are. They're greedy SOBs. They all have millions of dollars, and they go with hardly no money, and they all come out as multimillionaires. Let's say they're scammers, without a question. Now let's talk about truth and troll, okay? First of all, Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance are men of honor. They are really patriotic Americans. And I believe that both of them are going to have a sit-down discussion between the two of them, and they're going to make a decision based on what benefits this country. Also, J.D. Vance is honest. Now is not the time to make any kind of a decision. He needs more accomplishments as vice president, and he has given the same answer more than once to other reporters. And what the hell? Why give a reporter a soundbite that they can run with? Okay? So, absolutely, he's given the right, honest answer. You know, now, as far as AOC, and they're all idiots. There's no question about it. But these are the leaders of the Democratic Party because they have no leaders. None whatsoever, okay? And, Jeff, remember one thing about stupid people that vote Democrat, okay? Their attention to history is last night's broadcast, okay? So they can be buffaloed. They easily can be sucked into a rope-a-dope.
Well, and Russ, yes, you're as usual, you're completely right. But it goes back, I think it was it Mags? I can't remember now, but it was a previous caller it was Heather. It was Heather. And she said, you know, I know friends who are going to vote for a woman just because she's a woman, period. But that's it. Like, that's it. Like, literally, that's it. It would be like, imagine me saying to you, well, I'm going to vote for a white guy. Well, don't you care what the white guy's going to do? No, if he's white and he's a man, I'm going to vote for him. You say you're a moron. Well, that's the Democratic Party. And, you know, Heather's point was, don't underestimate AOC. Because she's a woman, she's a Latina, and for Democrats, that's it. That's all you need to be. It was like Kamala. Who the hell in their right mind would vote for Kamala Harris? Like, Russ, honestly, who would vote for that lunatic? Seriously, that airhead. Okay, and then she got 75 million votes. 75 million people voted for, at least in theory. I think a lot of it was stolen and voter fraud. But anyway, in theory, 75 million votes. Okay, the Democrats now begin to implode, and we're still 3 years away from the 2028 presidential election. But many of their top-tier candidates went to the Munich Security Conference, and it was a disaster. It was a disaster for AOC. It was a disaster for Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and it was a disaster for Gavin Newsom as well. None of them did well. All of them performed very poorly. And now the Democrats are left asking themselves, who do we have to run in 3 years? And let me cite you a poll that's going to blow your mind. According to Democrat primary voters now, again, it's 3 years. 3 years in politics is an eternity. But if the Democratic primary were held now, Kamala Harris, I'm not making this up, Kamala Harris would be their nominee. Newsom is a front runner. He's number 2. But right now, Democrat voters would have Kamala be their standard bearer one more time. You can't make this up. So the problem now the Democrats have is they have no one to run. They have no one to run. And their great hope, AOC, imploded on the world stage. 617. Or as Scott Jennings put it on CNN, she crapped the bed. 617-266-6868. Steve in Boston. Thanks for holding, Steve, and welcome.
Well, good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Steve.
So I think what it is that I was a political science major in college, and, you know, we had all these theories back in the early 2000s when I was in college about people voting. And unfortunately, in this day and age, people may agree or disagree with me, but people vote in perception, not reality. And the reality is that you send anybody over the city. You look at who went over there to that security conference over in Munich for the Democratic Party. Our beloved mayor of the city of Boston. There is not one solid Democrat out there right now that could be a front runner for a presidential election against Vance and Rubio. Sorry to say it. I mean, the reality is like them or not, but Vance and Rubio are the best of the best. I mean, yesterday alone, reading all and listening to what Rubio said was mind-blowing. And he's right. And AOC is not an intelligent woman by any stretch. And just look across the Democratic Party where women are leaders, from our governor to the mayor of the city of Boston, even the mayor of the city of Haverhill. If you ever heard her talk, her and AOC, she's an older version of AOC trying to run a city. I just don't think the Democrats are thinking clearly at all about who they're going to put as a frontrunner. And unfortunately, Kamala is not the person either. And this party is responsible for a lot of what's gone on. Even the other day at that hockey rink. Now, I'm an ice rink manager. That rattled me. That completely rattled me. I don't know who's going to walk through my door. And politics need to stay out of sports. That's what I've always said. I tell my kids this all the time. I go, there's a place of gathering of people. Why are we bringing politics into sports and entertainment where it's bringing people together? Politics has divided people, families, friends, and the Democratic Party of yesterday is not the Democratic Party of today. Unfortunately, just look around. I mean, this woman, AOC, has got as much intelligence as a 5-year-old child at times when she talks. And not knowing foreign policy and then saying whiteism and all of that. And Jeff, you hit it right on the head when they say Asia, Asians. Well, Asia is a big continent that's made up of Russia, India, Pakistan, just alone. All different cultures. So are you classifying those people as Asians?
Well, Steve, it's checkmate. I mean, checkmate. I mean, you've destroyed them. Like in a 2-minute call, you've destroyed them. And this is what I mean when I look. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be disparaging. I don't know what else word to use, but it's the stupidity of the Democratic Party. I mean, that's what it's. And look, and they keep dumbing down and dumbing down and dumbing down and dumbing down, and now it's gotten to the point that this is the race now for the Democratic. I'm not talking some mayor of some city nobody heard of. Because, you'll always have idiots. Okay, that's just life. Every country, any era, you always have idiots. I'm not talking that. I'm talking for the President of the United States of America. For potentially the leader of the free world. And this is their race. Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, and AOC. I want everybody to think about that. The cackler, the narcissist, okay, the guy who's looking at himself in the mirror all the time. And look at California. Look, there was a story. Steve, you can't make this up. You're not going to believe me, which is fine. You shouldn't believe me because this is such an outrageous story. You're going to say, no, Kuhner has got to be making this up for effect. Please look it up. He has so run California into the ground. Gavin Newsom, okay? He has closed all of the pipelines, all of the oil refineries. Not only is gas unbelievably expensive, and California, by the way, highest electricity prices in the whole country with the exception of Hawaii. But it's gotten so bad that 40% of the gas in California is imported from the Bahamas. I swear. Jeff, come on. You're making it up. No, look, I'm telling you, look it up. Over 40% of the gas California uses is imported from the Bahamas. Okay, everybody's weighing in on this. Even my sister down in Tucson, Arizona. All right, this is what Jennifer, on my private cell, this is what she texted me. Jeff, AOC talking about culture in Munich. Sorry, just to think about that. It's just, anyway, is like me going to the World Economic Summit and teaching all these economists about how countries should manage their finances. I barely got through high school math with 3 exclamation points. I know kids in kindergarten that know more than AOC about geography and culture. So to answer your poll question, the Olympic gold medal for stupid goes to, drumroll, AOC. Kamala gets silver and Newscomb gets bronze. So there you go. The gold medal, according to my sister, for stupid, you got to give it to Sandy Cortez, as she used to be called. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Okay. I've been teasing it all morning. Please sit back. You have to listen to this. It was an absolute masterclass. One of the best speeches I have heard in many, many years. Wasn't just the content, it was the delivery. Rubio shone like a statesman, and it was a message that is the heart of Trump's message. JD delivered it last year at the Munich Security Conference. This time it was Rubio. Listen now to Rubio speaking to all of these European leaders and heads of state to their face, telling them, we have made a very big mistake. And he says the mistake began in the euphoria of our victory in the Cold War. He says that's where we started to come out with this idea of the end of history and a world without borders, a world of unlimited mass migration, a world of free trade, and a so-called rules-based global order. And he said it wasn't just a fantasy. It wasn't just a delusion. It was one of the most destructive mistakes the West has ever made. Roll cut 5, Mike.
And in a pursuit of a world without borders, we opened our doors to an unprecedented wave of mass migration that threatens the cohesion of our societies, the continuity of our culture, and the future of our people. We made these mistakes together. And now, together, we owe it to our people to face those facts and to move forward to rebuild. Under President Trump, the United States of America will once again take on the task of renewal and restoration, driven by a vision of a future as proud, as sovereign, and as vital as our civilization's past. And while we are prepared, if necessary, to do this alone, it is our preference and it is our hope to do this together with you, our friends here in Europe.
So I got to say, first of all, it was very effective. It was very direct. He didn't mince his words. And he told them, he goes, we're going to do this. Okay. Whether you like it or not, whether you're with us or not, we're going to save America at a bare minimum. We're going to save the United States. But here I'm extending my hand on behalf of the President of the United States and his whole administration and America. We can save Europe. We can save the West. Let's do it together. And then listen to him. This is almost like a rallying cry saying, have you Europeans, have you forgotten your own greatness? Have you forgotten the greatness of the West? Roll cut 6, Mike.
We are part of one civilization, Western civilization. We are bound to one another by the deepest bonds that nations could share, forged by centuries of shared history, Christian faith, culture, heritage, language, ancestry, and the sacrifices our forefathers made together for the common civilization to which we have fallen heir. And so this is why we Americans may sometimes come off as a little direct and urgent in our counsel. This is why President Trump demands seriousness and reciprocity from our friends here in Europe. The reason why, my friends, is because we care deeply. We care deeply about your future and ours.
And he moved the room. They were visibly moved. In fact, they gave him a standing ovation at the end. He appealed to the best of them. He appealed to their highest ideals, their highest aspirations. He was basically reminding the Europeans of their prior greatness and saying, you don't have to accept your decline. You don't have to accept your fall. Join us and let's rise up together again. And listen now to Rubio saying, and in particular, there is one issue, the issue of borders and the issue of mass migration. If you do not settle this, if you do not fix this, there's no going back. Roll cut 7, Mike.
Mass migration isn't some fringe concern of little consequence. It was and continues to be a crisis which is transforming and destabilizing societies all across the West. Together, we can reindustrialize our economies and rebuild our capacity to defend our people. But the work of this new alliance should not be focused just on military cooperation and reclaiming the industries of the past. It should also be focused on together advancing our mutual interest in new frontiers, unshackling our ingenuity, our creativity, and the dynamic spirit to build a new Western century.
I mean, that's powerful stuff. When you're talking about a new Western century, in other words, the greatness of the West can be restored, and we can do it together. Frankly, it was a Reagan-esque speech. It was a Reagan-esque, optimistic, uplifting, powerful, inspirational speech. Now, there was one part in particular that honestly really moved me. And now I'm speaking as an immigrant to this country and whose parents came from Europe. Listen now to Rubio. And remember, he's talking to Italians, to Brits, to Germans, to French, to Dutch leaders, to Spanish leaders from Spain. And listen to him saying, America is a product of Europe. America is a product of the West. It is who and what we are. Roll cut 8A, Mike.
Our story began with an Italian explorer whose adventure into the great unknown to discover a new world brought Christianity to the Americas and became the legend that defined the imagination of our pioneer nation. Our first colonies were built by English settlers, to whom we owe not just the language we speak, but the whole of our political and legal system. Our frontiers were shaped by Scots-Irish, that proud, hardy clan from the hills of Ulster that gave us Davy Crockett and Mark Twain and Teddy Roosevelt and Neil Armstrong. Our great Midwestern heartland was built by German farmers and craftsmen who transformed empty plains into a global agricultural powerhouse. And by the way, dramatically upgraded the quality of American beer.
And the room started laughing. Because, you know, Germans make very good beer. So they're like, that's a good one. Now, I'm going to play this on the other side because I'm up against the break. I want to play one more cut, and then I'm going to go to the phone lines. He then talks about other countries who contributed. And then he talks about his own family story. And it's very powerful, extremely moving. Okay, so Rubio talks about the United States and the influence that all these Europeans have had, European nations, European peoples. He talks about, obviously, Christopher Columbus, the Italians, our Anglo heritage, which gave us so much, our legal system, our political system. He talks about the Scots-Irish. He talks about the Germans. But remember, he's of Cuban descent, and Cuba was once a colony of Spain. So his ancestors, forget going back to Cuba, they actually go all the way back to the old country, as they say, back to Spain itself. Listen now to Rubio. This is him in Munich. Roll cut 8B, Mike.
Our expansion into the interior followed the footsteps of French fur traders and explorers whose names, by the way, still adorn the street signs and town names all across the Mississippi Valley. Our horses, our ranches, our rodeos, the entire romance of the cowboy archetype that became synonymous with the American West. These were born in Spain. And our largest and most iconic city was named New Amsterdam before it was named New York. And you know that in the year that my country was founded, Lorenzo and Catalina Giraldi lived in Casal Monferrato in the Kingdom of Piedmont, Sardinia. And Jose and Manuela Reina lived in Sevilla, Spain. I don't know what, if anything, they knew about the 13 colonies which had gained their independence from the British Empire. But here's what I'm certain of. They could have never imagined that 250 years later, one of their direct descendants would be back here today on this continent as the chief diplomat of that infant nation.
I mean, it's incredible when the way he phrases it like that. I mean, 250 years ago, his ancestors, and I don't mean this to be derogatory, my ancestors were peasants as well. His ancestors were peasants. And 250 years later, his direct descendant, the direct descendants, is the Secretary of State of the United States of America. Literally one of the most powerful men in the world. Only in America. Only in America. It was an American speech by truly an American statesman. And when you look, just compare and contrast all morning, we've been playing clips of AOC. And I just played you some clips of Rubio. It's night and day. It's like an adult and a child. I mean, there's no comparison. Now, just very quickly, because I want to go to the phone lines, and obviously Grace will be on at 9 o'clock. And this is how much immigration has changed. This is what third world migration leads to. This is what Rubio, almost to underline and reinforce his point. So he's talking about all of these immigrant groups that previously came and how much they enriched the United States because they were immigrants. They didn't just come legally. They came to give, to work, to produce, to contribute, frankly, to make something of themselves and their families. Okay? They knew hardship. They knew suffering. They knew oppression. So they appreciated everything this incredible country and land had to offer. As he's talking in Munich, at the exact same time in Paris, France, illegal alien migrants, they just crashed into France, are rioting on the streets of Paris, on the streets of Paris. I mean, they're tearing everything to pieces. Okay, it's like they've turned Paris into Minneapolis. And what are they protesting about? They want free housing. They want everything free. Free food, free health care, free education, and yes, free housing. Here's a taste. These are the migrants protesting and rioting in downtown Paris. Roll cut 14, a mic. Yeah. They're torching cars. They're lighting cars on fire. Smashing windows. They're screaming for free housing. They're throwing rocks and bottles at police. Yeah. Yeah, it's bedlam. It's mayhem. It's chaos. So there's what immigrants used to be, what made America America, and then there's what Rubio is saying, you don't get a handle on this, guys, you're finished. We're finished. Everybody's finished. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Andy.
Hey, Jeff, on that Munich security conference, one of my first observations that I'd become aware of while I've been waiting to get on, and
you're being serious, Andy.
These liberal crybabies, Jeff, that always are sending you stuff online. You should just put a big picture of a pacifier on your website with a message that just says, "Here you go, guys. Here's your binky."
Andy, I got to ask you, because you're right. She was whining. I thought she was going to cry at certain parts. I mean, it was pathetic. But what do you make of AOC? And then juxtapose that with Rubio. In other words, compare and contrast. Here is what looks to be our, at least at a minimum, vice presidential candidate for the Republicans versus the Democrats' vice presidential candidate. And Andy, your reaction?
Now that brings me, Jeff, to my far more important point. My first observation about AOC, just looking at her performance, is she's way out of her league. And I'll just for a minute, Jeff, use myself as an example. Suppose I was to put my name in the hat and run for state attorney general, I would be way out of my league, because you at minimum at least need a law degree in order to be able to do that, which I don't have. So the point is, AOC is clearly way out of her league. She has no business being anywhere near the presidency. Kamala Harris was then and is now just that, way out of her league. Kamala Harris had no business being anywhere near the presidency, let alone a heartbeat away from it at one point. So that's my first observation there. Now to shift to Rubio. Rubio hit it way out of the park. And if and I'll tell you this much, Jeff, my thought about Rubio is, if he's having an awakening about the sins of the establishment, I'll take it.
If there was a primary today, Andy, for the Republicans, who obviously Trump's going to be in office for another 3 years, that goes without question, but just humor me. Say we're 2028, okay? Today suddenly becomes Ash Wednesday 2028, and there's now a Republican primary in place. Who would Andy in Milford vote for? Say there's, let me just give you a couple of, there's JD, there's Rubio, there's DeSantis, there's Nikki Haley, there's Pete Hegseth. I don't know if you want to throw somebody else in there. Here, Tulsi Gabbard. I like her a lot. Let's put in Tulsi. So look how deep that, whatever you think of them, look how deep that bench is. Who would Andy in Milford vote for?
Hey, at this point, Jeff, I would vote for JD, because it's abundantly clear to me in terms of this MAGA movement, he's heir apparent. And I think in some ways JD even connects more effectively than even President Trump does. And obviously he's considerably younger. And the thing is, MAGA has to try to become a coalition similar to what FDR built, and essentially basically be the show for the next 50 years. Because the scoundrels in this country that have screwed us over the decade, it's going to take time to get them out of there. And it's literally going to take a trenching tool to just dig out some of these interests that are determined to destroy this country.
Oh, I agree. And very effective analogy. Andy, as always, really good call. Every time you call, it's dynamite. My opinion today, again, 3 years is a long time, but if the primary were held today, I would go with J.D. Vance. And personally, I think a Vance-Rubio ticket would be unstoppable. It would be it's almost a dream ticket. It would be unstoppable. Andy, thank you so much for that call. 617-266-6868. Okay, joining us now, as she always does at this time, Dr. Grace, putting liberals in their place. Grace Voto, Full disclosure, yes, I married up, way up. She's my better half. Grace, how are you?
I am very well. Thank you, Jeff. It was nice to spend a day with the K-Man yesterday.
Now, for some reason, we're having you're kind of breaking up as we can't hear you as well. So I don't know if it's a phone connection or whatever, but let's see if we can maybe work that out. Grace, so I just want to ask you, if you were to answer our poll question, who is the most stupid? Because, Gretchen, we had AOC in Munich. We had Gavin Newsom in Munich. Kamala Harris is still technically leading in polls among Democratic primary voters, although Newsom is number 2. He's considered one of the front runners. So if it's AOC A, Kamala Harris B, and Gavin Newsom C, who do you think is the stupidest of those three? Who would you say is the most stupid?
By a country mile is Kamala Harris. She can't conclude a sentence without confusing everybody in the room. And she begins on one point, and by the end, she's somewhere else. And I think it's a combination of very low IQ and some kind of substance abuse. And that's a deadly combination.
So you're saying she's even more stupid? That she's even more stupid than AOC?
I mean, listen, she's all the way stupid.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So AOC was at Munich. You've been playing cuts all morning. She completely bombed the Taiwan question. It was an embarrassment. Venezuela, she says, is below the equator. It's above the equator. Spain introduced horses and cowboys to Mexico. I don't think she knows that Mexico was once a colony of Spain. I could go on and on and on. Look, she was out of her depth, out of her league. It was very obvious. Did she commit political suicide? Not domestically. She'll still be a congresswoman. But in terms of being a national political force, did she basically cut her own political throat? Or do you think that a party that would nominate Kamala will nominate AOC? What say you?
Jeff, I don't think that she is going to be the nominee. She just doesn't have what it takes. Even within her own party, among the elites, they don't think well of her. So the power brokers within the Democratic Party aren't going to allow it. And they're not going to take another chance on another Miss Stupid. They're not going to do that. So she showed that when it comes to foreign affairs, she just can't cut it. And the American people are going to want a strong, intelligent, capable commander-in-chief, especially as the threats around the world, they don't recede. So there's no way this woman is going to be the nominee.
What did you make of Rubio's performance? What did you make of his speech? Did he elevate himself now to a statesman? And could he now be the front runner for president in 2028?
Well, Jeff, I love it that you've been using the word all morning, statesman, and that, to be honest, has been lacking in the Trump administration. We need a statesman, and one of the areas that I have so disagreed with how this administration has taken on Europe and Canada is these are our brothers and sisters. These are our partners in civilization and in freedom, and I never wanted these disputes to be so public. I always thought that the disputes we have amongst each other, like with any family, you air your dirty laundry in private, never in public. Why cut us down like that? And what Marco Rubio did is get us to where it's the tone. It's the tone that I want to see from this administration. Yes, we've got problems to fix. Yes, sometimes they upset us. But it's got to be done with the spirit of unbreakable allies. That's what Canada is, has been. That's what Europe is, has been. This is Western civilization. We have to stand as one. And bravo, bravo, bravo to Marco Rubio. This is the tone that I want to see. Even when he's saying tough stuff, he was also reprimanding them and calling out the leftist policies that are destructive. But he did it as a leader, getting us to a better place with his words, not miring us in unnecessary antagonism and division.
Do you think now with this speech, Rubio, can he beat Vance in a primary, or do you still think, historically, vice presidents win the nominations, especially if the president has a successful term? That's just the way it is, at least throughout most of American history. Vance has been seen, so far anyway, very effective, very loyal vice president, has taken on a lot of portfolios. I know he's still relatively inexperienced, but 3 years from now, he won't be. I think he'll be in his political prime. That's just me. But what say you? Do you think now with this speech and with the way Rubio, let's be honest, has been a very good Secretary of State? He's also National Security Advisor. He's taken on multiple roles. He's taken a massive workload. He's frankly surprised me. I didn't think he was going to be this good. Is Rubio potentially the man to beat, or do you think it will be Vance?
Well, Jeff, to be honest with you, both men have some deficiencies in my eyes. I've always thought that Vance was way too inexperienced, and as you say, he's going to need a lot more years of experience, so let's see how that materializes. And the problem with Rubio is he's been a neocon most of his life, and then he switched to MAGA. So there's a little bit of doubt about him in terms of how steady is he going to be on every single MAGA policy once he gets in there. So I just, right now, to tell you the honest-to-God truth, I have more of a wait-and-see attitude. We also have to see what issues remain unfulfilled by the end of the second term, and which of the two of these men, or maybe other men are going to rise, or other women are going to rise, that most speaks to us. So when it comes to discussing 3 years from now, I'm really not all in on anybody, and not even on either of these two.
Is there any dark horse candidate that you're looking at? Is there any Tulsi Gabbard? Your guy, Ron DeSantis, he won't be governor of Florida anymore. He'll have a chance at a second crack at the can. Maybe he learned some from his mistakes in his first time go around. Is there anybody you're looking at that you think could be a spoiler? Because everyone's talking Vance Rubio right now. But is there anyone out there that you say, watch out, that person can come right up the middle and take it?
Well, if I could tweak his personality to make him less boring and a more exciting campaigner, the person that I think would be the best actual governor, leader, like actual in government, getting stuff done that we need is Ron DeSantis. To me, he is still number one. The problem is, it's very hard to get him to strike a fire in people. It's all about, let's make this decision with our head. So he's got some seasoning to go as well.
Well, maybe you could help him out with his shoes. If you remember the last time around, he got a couple of inches, like these heels that were 2-3 inches higher to try to make himself look taller on the debate stage.
Hey, Jeff, can we have you? That's the one I really want.
Oh, thanks. No, I can't. I wasn't born in the United States. Now, let's quickly go to the Democrats. Grace, we've got about 2 minutes. Is Kamala now has won. Recent polls say if they were to do a primary now, she would win, unbelievably. Newsom, though, is a front runner, one of the front runners. He would be second place. AOC, I don't know what's going to happen now after what happened over the weekend. You've got a couple of others, Gretchen Whitmer, Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania, Amy Klobuchar in Minnesota. But basically, you're looking at Kamala, Newsom, and AOC. If that's their choice, do the Democrats have a prayer in 2028?
Well, look, if that's their choice, I think that the party's going to go with Newsom. If that's the remaining three that they are considering. And between now and then, anything is possible. One thing I've learned: never underestimate the ignorance and the apathy of the people of this country.
So you think that even with a Newsom, say if Newsom wins the nomination, you still think the Democrats pose a danger in potentially winning the presidency, even though
I
California has been such a disaster?
Look, everything depends on the results, the final results of the second Trump administration. And so right now, the affordability crisis is still number one on people's minds. If this is not resolved by then, it's going to be a vote against whoever was in office now. So sadly, that's just the way it goes. And never mind all the other achievements, you know?
Interesting. Okay, I know you don't like to do this, but and we got 30 seconds. Look in your crystal ball. What ticket do you see for the Republicans? What ticket do you see for the Democrats?
Gosh, you're so right, Jeff, when you say I hate to do that. Crystal ball. I think right now it would definitely be, at this moment, a Vance-Rubio ticket with Vance leading it, and I don't think Rubio would try to knock him out. I think he would just play ball and go along. And for the Democrats...
Mike, you're kidding. You couldn't let her get out her pick for the Democrats? Are you serious? Okay, so Grace texted me her pick. As you know, she went with Vance and Rubio to be the Republican ticket in 2028. I agree with her. I think it will be J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. I think it will be practically an unstoppable, invincible ticket. That's just me. And now, for the Democratic ticket, as of today, Grace says, and she hates to make predictions, but Grace says it's probably going to be Newsom at the top of the ticket and most likely Gretchen Whitmer as the VP. And as she texted me, and I just want to relay this to you, and you tell me if you agree or disagree, she says there's no way this is such a party that is anti-white and especially anti-white male that the Democrats would allow the top two slots to be white men. So, or even to be men. So she says it's going to have to be a woman. Most likely it's going to be Gretchen Whitmer. She thinks it could have been AOC, but before Munich, after the way she's imploded and the disaster that has befallen her over the weekend, in terms of just, it was one disastrous answer after another. She now believes Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, who, I mean, you know, she didn't bomb, she didn't impress, but she didn't bomb at the Munich Security Conference. So she thinks Newsom will probably go with a female governor, either Whitmer, maybe Amy Klobuchar, who's going to running for governor of Minnesota. But she says right now she's going to go with Newsom and Whitmer. I'm going to shock you. I think it's going to be Newsom and AOC. I know she should be politically finished, but this is the Democratic Party we're talking about. Remember, the Bills in Sudbury, the Chris's in Gloucester, they're the ones who vote in these primaries. And if they put Kamala on the ticket, they're going to put AOC on the ticket. So I to appeal to the rabid socialist wing, the rabid socialist base of the party, I think they're going to have no choice, because this is now Mamdani's party, it's Bernie's party, and AOC is definitely one of them. They can't go with Gretchen Whitmer. They can't go with anyone else. They want someone on the hard left, the Marxist left. And that's AOC. So, and she's also a Latina. And I think they're going to want to go with the Latina to counter Rubio, who's a Latino. Because if they lose the Latino vote, the Democrats are finished. They can't win. There's no way. So I think, believe it or not, even after, you know, as Scott Jennings put it, even after she crapped the bed, even after that absolute disaster of a performance, and it's going to be more. With her, there's no learning curve. It's going to be like this all the way through 2028. She's still going to be their vice presidential nominee. Just my opinion. I hope I'm wrong, but something tells me I may not be. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Eric in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Eric, and welcome.
Morning. Thanks for taking my call, Jeff. 100% Chris. You married up, Jeff. I love you in a non-sexual way, and with they're all the same. By the way, they're all AOC. Okay, she's Jeremiah Wright. Okay, she is white supremacy cops. Okay, white supremacy ICE. Okay, so she sees things. Okay, in colors. Okay, in identities. Okay, now. AOC, she is stupid, detached, disgusting, unhinged, and she spreads hate and uses fear and just totally. It's nasty, really, and it was on display there. Okay, but she's just like look at Kamala, AOC, Hillary. Okay, they're. The birds of a feather flock together, okay? And they're all just frauds, scammers, and white guilt, okay? Again, white supremacy, police. Look at Christopher Columbus, okay? The George Washington, the Forefathers Monument, our forefathers, okay? Our Constitution. Okay, everything they're tearing down. So all she does is see is white. Okay, it's snowing out. Is the snow white? AOC, incredible. Okay?
Oh, you're right. No, Eric. According to her, I'm telling you, the snow is racist. This is a woman. You can look it up. Again, you're going to think I'm making this up. You're going to come on, Jeff. Nobody can be that stupid. You're just now exaggerating again for dramatic effect. Look it up. When she first won. And she goes to Congress. She gets an apartment in Washington, D.C. And then she does one of these selfie videos where she's appealing to her supporters saying, I think my sink is possessed. She's saying, I'm telling you, it's like a demon or there's some kind of a possession taking place. Why? She says there's this funny sound coming from the sink. It was her garbage disposal. It was the garbage disposal. And she wasn't joking. She's like, what is that? What's that sound? I pressed something and I turned something and suddenly there's this crazy sound. What is that sound? And her people are, her fans or supporters, I guess on live stream are like, no, it's just the garbage disposal. Calm down. No, you don't need to call an exorcist. No, it's okay. It's okay. This woman is so freaking dumb. She doesn't even know what a garbage disposal is. Okay? This is what I'm talking about. And it doesn't matter. They keep voting for her over and over. She can primary and beat Schumer. She can become the next vice president. 617-266-6868 is the number. CJ in Boston. Thanks for holding, CJ. And welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Jeff, you stole my thunder, and that can't be stressed enough. I guess AOC won't get any endorsements from the Plumbers Union. Here's a woman so stupid. 4 years of college at BU, so stupid that she didn't know what a garbage disposal was. So she should be running as the garbage disposal. Maybe she should maybe there's a company here in Massachusetts taking in federal funds to put her in a plumbing apprenticeship before she goes on the campaign trail. But Marco Rubio, this man is excellent. I mean, he's outdone himself. He really has outdone himself in representing our country and coming across in simple, honest terms that any working man can understand. He has done a phenomenal job, Jeff. And he is right. He is right. You know, Jeff, I recently went away for a month very close to Australia. And I got Australian news and Russian news on the television. And what they didn't report, it was what happening there with Albanese, the Prime Minister of Australia. Things were so bad there in the colleges that they were actually beating up, and in one case urinated on a Jewish professor. That's how bad things were there. But I had, during that vacation time of 1 month, I was able to speak with people from Denmark, Australia, Germany, and England. and all of them said the same thing, is that the Muslims have ruined their country. And I think right now what's going to hurt the European Union is they're all in this union. It is Italy right now who's trying to back out of this immigration policy that the EU has. But it's ruining their countries, and unless we take a stand now here in the United States, it will ruin us. Mandami now in New York is going to have a special thing for Ramadan. He has 500,000 Muslims in the city of New York. That's a pretty strong army, Jeff. And that's only the beginning of armies that are growing throughout this country. And you know that what AOC should have said at that security summit, not as whether or not the United States would defend Taiwan from the Chinese if they come under attack, but whether or not the President of the United States had the right to send federal troops into Minneapolis to protect honest, law-abiding people of Minnesota. You've been to Minnesota. I've been to Minnesota. And Minnesotans, and a number of times, have been voted the friendliest people in the United States. And look what they've done to their state. Look what they have done with their state. Look what immigration has done in stealing upwards now reportedly $19 billion from American taxpayers in this country. American taxpayers should be outraged. You know, there should be a standard policy. You want a green card? If you don't speak fluent English, you can't apply for a green card. There has to be certain standards to which our culture is upheld in this country. You know, you talk about Christopher Columbus. Well, they tore his statue down here at Christopher Columbus Park in Boston, and the proud people of the North End of Boston put that statue together, put his head back on, and it's right now in front of St. Leonard's Church in the North End. They have tried to strip this country of its identity, and they continue to do so. You know, there's one thing that it bothers me, Jeff, and I think that must be said. Year after year after year, we have Black History Month, to which you turn on the television set and you have black movies, What does this have to do with black history? What does a Denzel Washington movie have to do with black history? I could think of much greater men who contributed to the history and the culture of our country and the inventions of our country. As you said, George Washington, Henry Ford, just to name a few, Benjamin Franklin. Brendan Carr, he's the head over there, the FCC. I thought they should have equal time for equal subjects. What are they going to run, a White History Month or a Hispanic History Month? We are being force-fed this idea that somehow white America is inferior to everything. And Ocasio-Cortez has basically said that when she went over to our European partners. Look, Jeff, the Europeans, the EU has used us for years. If America comes under attack, do we need NATO? No, but we've been contributing more money than at one point all of them combined. We don't need NATO. We participate in NATO to strengthen our European neighbors. And that's what Rubio should have put his foot down and said. If it wasn't for the United States of America, you might be speaking German today. But, you know, Jeff, just one other thing on this Black History thing, because it's bothering a lot of white Americans, including myself. You know, you don't want to talk. Jesse Jackson recently passed, right? Now, here's a man who had several children, was married, and impregnated a young lady. He was a reverend, a man of the cloth. You had Martin Luther King. The FBI released his files. The family did not want his files released. Why? Because it had been reported that he had 45 extramarital affairs, or maybe even more. Is that part of Black history? So, you know, I just like to say this to Black America, if I may, in a respectful way. The next time, you know, you walk into McDonald's and you can't get extra sauce on your burger, or something, something is late in the mail, you know, just take a look in the mirror. Because when it comes to slavery and what it created and the identity that it has placed on the United States of America, never forget one thing. It was your own people who sold your people into slavery.
Well, that's the seminal truth that the liberals try to deny, to suppress over and over again. It's that it was black Africans who sold black Africans into slavery. Because in Africa, slavery was rampant. Slavery has been rampant in Africa for thousands of years. It still exists to this day. Not everywhere, obviously, but still in many parts. So it was black Africans who were seminal to enslaving fellow blacks and then selling them to slave traders. Yet liberals never mention that. And then, look, I don't want to get into a victim game because ultimately it's pointless. It's not productive. But, Thomas Sowell, the brilliant black conservative, he's the one who made this observation. He's completely true. He said more whites, primarily white Europeans, were sold into slavery by the Ottoman Empire in North Africa than all the blacks that were brought in chains to the United States. He said, in fact, it's not even close. And that's over just a few decades. He said over 40 years, the same period that blacks were being brought here in chains, the Ottoman Empire, the Muslim empire of the time, were grabbing Greeks, Serbs, Albanians, Croatians, Italians, Bulgarians, Romanians, and they put them in chains and they enslaved them or sold them into slavery in northern Africa. And Sowell's point was just that you think blacks were the only ones who were enslaved? Whites were enslaved, and they were enslaved by either Arab Muslims or by black Africans in North Africa. In other words, slavery has always been a two-way street. It's not some singular guilt of only one race. And that is the great lie. You keep hearing about this slavery, slavery, slavery. You would think America was the only country that had slavery. That's a lie. Every culture, every civilization, every quote-unquote race engaged in slavery. But we're the only ones, and that's because of the Democratic Party and the leftists in academia and the universities, that keeps flagellating, whipping ourselves about something that happened hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. The Persians had slavery. The ancient Greeks had slavery. The Egyptians had slavery. The Romans had slavery. I could go on and on. George in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, George, and welcome.
Thanks for the call, taking the call. Great topic. I think that this wave that happened in Munich is just you have a birding representative that you obviously showcased to the radicals, and then you have the middle-aged white guy, and then you of course have the woman. So I think that's all it is. I just think it's a first wave. I think that if this SAFE Act is passed, their game has to change, and it's going to be like a Wes Moore, in my opinion. More, the same playbook, but 13, 14 years later, I think that combination worked well. I think that the problem with on the Republican end with the Rubio and JD is, you don't have a governor. And historically, that's always been an issue. So I think Little Marco did great. It's just totally inspiring on my end. But, I mean, he was part of that gang of 8. And I remember in 14, and I think you were on the air by then in the Boston area. But, with the immigration bill and all the... Oh, and I opposed it. No, you're right. Of course. I mean, I was on for a couple of years by the time they got to the Gang of 8. And I opposed it tooth and nail. I thought it was a disaster. Rubio, for me, was a traitor. And that's why I thought when Grace said earlier, I've never forgotten that he was a neocon. Well, I haven't forgotten either. And that's why there's still a part of me that doesn't trust Rubio. It's another reason why, frankly, I would go with JD. But look, George, you're right. Historically, Americans like to go with governors because they have good, strong executive experience. It's great training.
to become president of the United States. But George, let me just ask you, just to play devil's advocate for a second. Trump became president twice. I believe he won all 3 times, but let that go. He wasn't a governor. Obama, 2 terms. He wasn't a governor. What I'm saying is, it seems if you go back the last 25 years, now I believe Biden stole the election, but but let's just, for the sake of argument, he won it. He wasn't a governor either. So what I'm saying is, George, have things changed in America where senators, vice presidents, Biden was a senator before he was a VP, a businessman like Trump, you don't have to be a governor to be a very serious, strong presidential candidate. As long as you can show you can do the job, that you have some kind of executive experience, that's good enough. What say you?
I think 2 things I would bring to the table on that example. One, social media. So your point, I mean, it goes to you, and I think the point that I would bring up that I think was devastating for our country. I voted for him twice. That was George W. Bush. They just basically destroyed the brand and kicked off the century in a terrible way where we're behind. And, the WTO with China, just a slew of the mistakes. And because of that, the answer was Obama. And then the pendulum swung the other way. After 8 years of Obama, the pendulum swung the other way, and it was we're taking this, basically a street fighter, a billionaire blue collar guy that acts like a blue collar guy to right the wrongs of Obama. So again, I don't know. I think you're right. I think the patterns probably has broken, but I don't see how if the Democratic Party thinks they're going to be running AOC or someone like that, there's no future for them.
Well, if they pass the SAVE Act, George, you're 1,000, not 100. You're 1,000% correct. Look, I'm telling you right now, if they pass the SAVE Act, the Democrats are finished. For a generation, they will be in the political wilderness. They are going to get destroyed. They're going to lose the midterms, and they're going to get wiped out in 2028. Kamala got 75 million votes, in theory. I'm telling you, minimum 10 to 12 million of those votes, that was voter fraud. There's no question. So they can't win. They just can't win. And it's going to change the census, too. The more illegals that we keep deporting, California will lose representation, not just in the House of Representatives, but also in the Electoral College. Ditto for Illinois, ditto for New York State. In total, that's 18 Electoral College votes that illegal aliens have given just those 3 states alone. So what I'm saying is they can't win a free and fair election, and they're going to lose congressional representation, and they're going to lose Electoral College votes. So the country is going to become increasingly red state, which is going to make it harder and harder, which means that if the Democrats want to win in a real election, in a serious, free and fair election, they're going to have to moderate and moderate considerably. The problem is the socialists now have taken over the party. So that's why, George, I could be wrong. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't claim to have a crystal ball. But you pass the SAVE Act, they're going to be like the Republicans under FDR. They're going to be in political exile in the minority party for at least 15 to 20 years. That's why the Democrats, you watch, it's going to be the mother of all filibusters to stop the SAVE Act.